Hi, this is Lorraine, and I'm doing another video. If you'll give me a second to clear, center, and balance my energy, we'll get started. Okay. I thought I might get a break this week. I didn't have a lot of stuff coming in the beginning, but it did pick up. I have to figure out where I left off. 3/19, March 19th, 2023. Whenever I speak about quantum entanglement, I see myself connected to that person, another person, with an infinity symbol. So the best example I can give is I've used my ex-husband in a lot of examples in the last couple videos. And so if I'm picturing that example in my mind, I'll see myself and my ex-husband, and then there'll be an infinity symbol that's connecting both of us. So I actually wrote that right here. See, so me and my ex-husband. And so I was so exhausted after last week. I really didn't write a lot of stuff in my journal in the first part of the week. And so I will just say that that infinity symbol just is a symbol of that eternal connection that we have to one another, spiritually, energetically. We come and go in and out of one another's lives for a purpose. And I've said this in past videos, sometimes we're meant to cross paths for a moment, sometimes it's for a week, a year, a decade, a lifetime. You know, it varies. And it's that quantum entanglement, it's that interaction, that connection that we have that draws us together and allows us to move apart, but always keeps us connected energetically. And so if I may just really quickly, it's also that quantum entanglement that holds us. Okay, so it keeps us together, it draws us to one another, but there is a moment where we're supposed to leave each other's presence, right? And so in all circumstances, that could be like an ending of a relationship, and which could be an ending of a marriage, or maybe you went to school with someone and now you're graduated and you're going in different directions. It could be siblings that were raised together. Everybody ends up growing up and having their own lives, but simply put, death. We're all meant to pass. We're all meant to at some point sever that relationship from this lifetime. And so one of the most difficult challenges that we have with this emotional body carrying the depth and breadth of emotion is releasing and letting go when it's time to let go, because of that quantum entanglement. We're supposed to be drawn together, but we're also supposed to let go. But truly, we never let go because we're always connected. Okay, so we're always connected to the source energy. We're always connected because we are unified always, never apart. Separation is a construct of not only this life, but this universe. And we're meant to live from this place and then reunify, okay? So to let go truly isn't to let go. We're just letting go of constructs and circumstances, okay? And so that's what part of this process of entanglement is about, this understanding of path and purpose, this understanding of birth and death, this understanding of life in our existence from a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of awareness. So 3/21, March 21st, no lasting change comes from brute force. And that was just a reference back to the last video where I was talking about how mass and energy, matter and energy, and Einstein's special relativity equation, and how mass and energy truly aren't the same, but they do exist, right? So we have mass and energy, which are actually one and the same, but from a lower perspective, a lower level of consciousness, a lower level of awareness, we see matter and energy as separate. And so these low-level energies, I'll use the zeta reticuli, they're working for mass. They think they're working from energy because they've accessed a lot of technology or usurped a lot of technology in their endeavors. So they feel like they have this higher level of awareness, but what they do is they have access to technology and equipment they shouldn't have access to because of who they've aligned themselves with, okay? And so it's a false sense of superiority. It's a false sense of perception of higher level of consciousness. But they're working from this plane of existence where we're still working from matter. So even though they may travel through a wormhole to move through time, they're still in a ship. They're still working from physical plane objects, matter. But truthfully, the only change that's lasting that occurs in this universe comes from energy, from consciousness, awareness, and shifting, influencing this plane, this universe from the consciousness, because this universe is constructed of energy, right? And particles of energy. But the divine source exists from a place of pure consciousness. There is no energy in pure consciousness, awareness, but that conscious awareness can exact a force on energy, okay? It does exact a force on energy. And the lasting change that occurs in this universe is when it's the energy, the consciousness affecting a force, exacting a force on the energy that creates change on this plane, on these material planes of existence. Okay, that's the only lasting change that occurs. 322, March 22nd, quantum entanglement. I'm exacting a force against all energy around me. All energy in my field and all energy connected is influenced by my thoughts and intentions. Thus, I am everything, everywhere, and nowhere. I permeate all things, unified always, never apart. And so basically what I just said is pretty much just that. All energy in my field is protected. All energy outside exists at its current state, but influenced by the flow of energy. This unbalanced energy exists, but it exists in isolation. It exists in the push and pull, ebb and flow of the duality of this universe. It is the push and pull, or we can see that push and pull is conflict, is inner conflict, that creates duality. When the push and pull ceases to exist, we exist in balance, and duality fades away. So as we release any type of internal conflict, any conflict that we're feeling in our conscious mind, we move back into unity. But it is that internal conflict that we experience in our conscious mind, it will affect energy around us. Okay, even though we think we're keeping our thoughts contained within our mind, and we're not projecting them verbally onto other people, we think that we don't have an effect on those things, people around us, but we do. The internal conflict in our mind affects the field, our energy field, and thus anybody in or connected to our inner energy field. And the closer that those people or things are to our energy field, the greater the force. And as it gets further out, it's like a wave dissipating, but nevertheless, it's still there. It still exists. Okay. And I think I'm trying to remember. I don't know where I heard this, but I know I was hearing that if you're in space and all you have to do is push an object away from you, that force will continue forever if nothing gets in its way, because there's no inertia. Is that right? There's nothing to work against it, right? There's nothing to work against it. In space, there's no resistance. Okay, and so just touching something and pushing it, it'll float out for eternity, or until it hits something. Okay, so that's kind of how our energy field works. We can exact a force from ourselves out into the universe through our thoughts. But as it gets further away from us here in this plane, on this planet, it has less effect. Okay? 3/23, March 23rd. So this is, I was walking to the bus stop after work. There was a crow that flew up and around my head, so it flew really close to the top of my head, and it landed in the tree that I was walking up to. There's a big tree by this bus stop. And then it went up in the tree. As soon as I stepped into the bus stop and I was where I was going to stand to wait, the crow dropped out of the tree, and then it landed by my feet. And it picked up a piece of chip. It looked orange in color. And to me, when I see orange, I think of spiritually awakened. And even though orange has many meanings, when I was looking up the color of the meaning of orange, spiritual meaning, I found an article of that in India. It's a color that the spiritually awakened, like gurus will wear. So that's what, from that point on, and whenever I see orange, that's the first thing that always comes to my mind. It then flew to a rooftop across the street. A crow in the tree next to the rooftop started making a noise like a chitter. Then I'm like, I was seeing so many crows. This is very flying around and flying over my head and stuff. And I haven't been really stopping to take a moment to like close my eyes and listen. I've had a lot of stuff happening, and personally. So I'm like, I definitely have to stop and think, or actually stop and receive. The message, there are many messages coming in, but they must be palatable. In other words, I must be ready to receive those messages. Clear energy, open your heart, open up to truth, allow the flow of energy to happen. And so I have notes here, but it's just been a really rough week. It's been a rough week, a lot of fatigue, stress, and family stuff going on. I reached out to Zako. Okay, so I'll just say a lot of family stuff has been going on personally, and I've had a lot of energetic attacks. I want to say energetic attacks shifting me out of center, a lot of stuff happening at work, and just the flow of energy is very intense. It's very choppy, and people are starting to get very agitated. People are starting to become defensive. People are starting to try to control things they can't or are not meant to control, and it's causing a lot of friction. And I'm very sensitive to that energy, and so it's just been very difficult. But I think it's very much a sign of what's going on, because it's not just at work, or it's in my home, it's when I go to the grocery store, it's everywhere. So it's been a rough week, a lot of fatigue, stress, family stuff going on. I reached out to Zako to check in with him to see what he's doing, where he's at, because I'm personally feeling overwhelmed. And we kind of work together. We are teammates, you know, we are on the same team. We have a similar path and purpose. And so if I'm feeling this energy coming in and just being so erratic, I really wanted to just see, okay, is he seeing the same thing? Is he feeling the same thing? What's going on? And I just reached out to him. The image that comes into my head is a wall, like the Great Wall of China. I can't see the end. So the wall is so long, I can't see either end. It also looks like a castle wall, very formidable. So the Great Wall of China obviously is very formidable, but also it's different in color and texture. And so I also saw what looked to me what would be a traditional castle wall with the bricks going up, and I felt like a moat, and then the castle behind it, and just high walls, higher than the Great Wall of China, I guess. It also looks like a castle wall, very formidable. Then I see a mask on it. It looks like the comedy face in the comedy tragedy iconic image. So I don't know how most people will, I think, know that comedy tragedy, the masks for theater. So as I was seeing this vision, the mask for comedy showed up on the wall. And it looked like it was hanging on the wall. It was not in the wall or part of the wall. It looked like a dark silver. I can't remember what they call that dark silver color, but a dark silver mask, and it was hanging on the wall, and it was very large. So I would say it took up like half the wall, with a little bit above and below, a little bit of the wall above and below exposed. The mask. Then the wall has flames rising from the top. So then I see flames rising from the top of the wall. The message is there is a firewall up. It's heavily fortified and impenetrable. The comedy mask represents the entertainment brought to Zako as they try to get around or through the wall or walls. He shares, it's like watching toddlers work on a puzzle for the first time, or try to put a square peg into a round hole. No matter what they do, they're not going to fit the square peg into the round hole. He helps me because he makes me feel not so alienated. Thinking of timelines, and sometimes my angels and guides or whatever divine energies come in, and they do silly, funny stuff to make me laugh. I love Scooby-Doo, so a lot of times, sometimes it'll have to do with Scooby-Doo or Shaggy, or just my weird, twisted sense of humor that nobody gets. But so having Zako come in, he's just trying to he's telling me that he's okay, and he's just trying to lighten my energy field. Thinking of timelines. So I'm thinking of timelines. Nothing transcends into darkness or unbalanced energy. The ego must be released as the 3D. The ego does not exist at higher levels of consciousness. The transitional phase of 4D is a time set aside to relinquish the ego. And so after I wrote that, I didn't write it in my journal, but after I wrote that, I felt like this might be exclusively an earth thing. I think because we carry the depth and breadth of emotion, there's just no way that the power of creation, whether it be from a beautiful place or from a dark place, we carry that ability within us, and will not be allowed to transcend with ego past this level on this world. I think there may be a little more leeway on other worlds. That's what I felt intuitively. There might be a little more leeway because for other worlds, because they don't have the creative power and gifts that we do. 324, March 24th. Generational trauma is karma from past cycles. So I was talking about generational karma and releasing generational karma. But, and then I just thought generational trauma is carried over into future cycles, okay? So as we release this generational trauma or generational karma, we are releasing trauma from past cycles, okay? We're releasing trauma and karma from past cycles because they are quantumly entangled, okay? I don't have a lot of notes there, but I think I have more information later in this week. People you are drawn to, do not siphon their energy. Fill it with love and gratitude. That is a healthy exchange of energy. This is true reciprocity. So I brought that up. I thought I put more notes in here. Oh, I do talk about it later. But I'm just going to say this right now. I don't remember if it's in my notes later on, but or in my journal later on. But let me look. I'm going to look. Okay, so I'm going to actually talk about this a little bit more because I think it's really important. There is a tarot reader I watch. She's really good, but I found myself really not caring really much about the tarot reading because she's actually a very good reader, but her energy is very light and it's very beautiful and calming. And I found myself drawn to that energy, and knowing that I know when people communicate with me energetically, I know when people are thinking about me because I can feel them pulling on my energy. I can feel them, okay? And so I know I can do that same thing. Like I can like reach out to her and like want more of that beautiful light energy and like start siphoning it from her. And I started becoming very aware of that, and I'm like, I can't listen to her unless I figure out how to make sure I don't siphon her energy. And so what came to me is you express love and gratitude for what she offers you. And so I was like, okay, that's what I do when I'm listening to her and I'm being so healed. It's very healing to hear her voice, and it's very healing. Just hearing her voice puts me in her energy field, right? But in order to maintain reciprocity and not siphon her, it's very important for me to project love and light energy at her and express gratitude for what balance she's bringing and healing she's bringing into my life. And that way we maintain an even or equal exchange of energy, okay? That is healthy, and it's true reciprocity. And so from that, I got money, currency is not an equal exchange. Sharing love. Repay with love and gratitude. Fill them with love and gratitude. This allows for an equal exchange of energy. It honors the flow of energy. It honors all energy. There will be no currency. And so I had a vision later on. Actually, I think it was this morning, so I wrote more about that today. It's later in the journal. And then I have the flower of life, spots on the petals, quantumly entangled. And then I drew this, a fractal representing, so the dots, the black dots represent a fractal, the circles represent energy fields. And the fractal represents the physical form, the circle represents connecting the physical and the energetic fields. and quantum entanglement. So the flower of life is not just sacred geometry. There's like so much depth to what it symbolizes. And so one of the symbols is quantum entanglement, scientifically spoken, or how we are all connected, unified always, never apart. And then we have that whole seed. You know, we have I don't want to start channeling this, but just explore that possibility of we in physical forms represent the fractal. The energy field represents the conscious energetic part of the energetic body, and how those two from this plane of existence are connected. But not only on this plane of existence, but across the universe. How does that happen, right? Quantum entanglement. This has been coming in a lot, and to be honest, when I saw that vision of the black dot and the field, and then the flower of life, and started making that connection, I really wasn't. I didn't get a lot of other information about that. Okay, so I'm assuming I'll get more information later as time goes on. 3:25, and then also again I have here 5:39 a.m. I woke up with a persistent thought in my head and a vision. I saw myself in a small shop, not in the US. I felt like I could have been in India, but definitely outside the US, at a shop that sold saris. I have always thought saris were such beautiful articles of clothing, bright colored, beaded, elegant. Where I was raised I was raised in Hayward, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. By the time I was in my 30s, there was a large Middle Eastern and Indian community. An Egyptian family moved in next door. I remember wherever I'd go, at least once a day, more depending where I was, I would see an Indian woman wearing a beautiful sari. I always thought they were beautifully colored and elegant, too elegant for daily wear from my American perspective. In my vision, I walked into the store, greeted the shopkeeper, walked around the shop, selected a sari, walked up to the shopkeeper to show her which one I selected, shared love and gratitude for her beautiful creation, and bowed. The shopkeeper bowed back to me, and I walked out of the building. This is our future. We will create the things that fuel our soul and share them with one another. We will express love and gratitude, fuel our soul and the souls of one another, raise our vibration, fortify our energy fields and that of Mother Earth. We will be beacons of light in the universe, like our sun. We will project that energy out into the universe and transcend it. We are the catalysts. So, this brings me to, I did a past life regression in 2016, and I went under, and the second so they do this, the hypnotherapist will talk, kind of settle you, and then you kind of move into the past life regression. But the second that we moved into this past life regression, I was like pulled. I felt like someone had my hand and they were pulling me out into space, and I started panicking. I felt anxiety in my heart. I felt anxiety in my stomach. Like my heart was palpitating, and I look back, and I'm up like this, and I see Earth, like I'm being moved away from Earth, and I think I panicked a little. I was like, oh my God. And then we started going through a wormhole, and the wormhole wasn't like a tube. It was a tube, but I could see it shifting back and forth, like just wobbling. And we went all the way through, and we got to the other side, and all of a sudden I had all these lights around me. And so whenever these energies come to me, they present themselves as just, it's like a pinpoint of light, but the way the light breaks up or reflects, or I don't know. It's the shape of like a marquee diamond. And so I had a whole bunch of them all around me, and they started communicating with me. And when I was looking back, I was looking at Earth. So I'm up with these energies through the wormhole. I look through the wormhole. I could see the wormhole shifting like this, and I see Earth. And Earth looks like green. It looks like it would be if I'd ever been to Pangea, just like a bunch of greenery everywhere. The land masses were green, and there were no clouds, and the water looked clean. So Earth looked beautiful. And it wasn't like one continent though. It did look like there were multiple continents on the planet, but I wasn't close enough to see all the details. And they said, it's been a long time, but what I remember, and I'm sure I have it written in my journal somewhere, in one of my old journals, what I remember them saying is, Earth can be like this again, but it needs a catalyst for change. It needs a catalyst. And I was like, okay. And so that was I let that go. I knew immediately what that message was, but I totally let it go because it was too much for me to receive in that moment. I had just I'm going through the beginning stages of a massive spiritual awakening. I had so many things happening around me, stuff manifesting in my room, physically manifesting, angels physically manifesting in my room. As I read through this and I'm having this vision, it wasn't a dream, it was a vision, and I'm told we are the catalyst. Okay, so humanity is the catalyst for change through the universe. Okay, so I had a note to talk about the past life regression. There must be a catalyst for change. That's what I was told during my past life regression. I thought so in that moment, they were talking about a catalyst for change in the planet, but also what I didn't hear, and I wouldn't have heard that early in my spiritual awakening, was that they also meant for the universe. So Earth is the catalyst for change, and I am one of the catalysts for change on Earth, but Earth as a whole, humanity, this planet, all energy on this planet, even the beings that are meant to be here on the inner Earth, we are all catalysts for change in the universe. So I was watching somebody else, and she said, you have been raised, she was talking, she's very young but very wise. A lot of these young readers have so much intuitive knowing, just you can tell their connection because of the wisdom that comes out of their mouth at such a young age. And it's not, if you think about all time being now, it's not like we say old souled, but really it's not about being old soul because we're all the same age soul wise. It's more about opening up and connecting with the divine. And those young individuals who are opening themselves up to the connect to the divine, that's wisdom. And that isn't necessarily about age. That's about connecting to your intuition and allowing yourself to open up and allowing yourself to release things that are very difficult to release. Because in order to connect and have that depth of connection with the divine, we have to release trauma. Okay, because releasing the trauma and the things that create imbalance in our life opens us up to clear messages, gives us clarity. Okay, so this young lady, she stated, you have been raised to associate gifts with good behavior. So when they appear in your life, you wonder whether you deserve them. Okay, and she's talking about trauma, right? For people who have been through a lot in their lives, in their childhood especially, we're rewarded for good behavior, right? As a special ed teacher, we were learned to teach people how to shift their behavior through positive behavior support. Kids with pretty significant disabilities, because I work with kids with moderate to severe disabilities. So we are trained to work with children to help them change their behaviors to more proper, more functional, more socially acceptable behaviors through positive behavior support. Okay? And so that's what we're taught in our lives. And sometimes those lessons can be depraved, you know, what we need to do to receive the things we need, okay? Depending on who the person is that has made those determinations. And so I'm going to get into that more. You were raised in a way that you only got gifts when you behaved well. Subconsciously, you don't feel like you deserve it. So these are things she's talking about when I thought this is very true. But I felt like when she said you were raised in such a way that you only got gifts or were rewarded when you behaved well, I feel like it's important to add or elaborate or inquire, what does it mean to behave well? And who determines what behaving well looks like? And I have to honor, like when you're talking spur of the moment and you're intuitively, sometimes she probably knows this, but it just wasn't something that she talked about in that moment. And so I'm not criticizing her, but it was one of the things that came into my mind that was I felt was very important. And so, and important for me to, important enough that I needed to put it in my journal. This is the key or the root of indoctrination. So who determines what it means to behave well and what that looks like, okay? What am I going to reward you for? I'm going to reward you for the things that I want to see, right? So as a parent, as a special ed teacher, it was our job to teach these kids to increase their quality of life, okay? So they're not seen as awkward, weird, social outcasts. We want them to blend as much as possible so they can be treated equally, right? But as well as honor their individuality, right? So my parents taught us how to treat others with respect and kindness and unconditional love and honor people's individuality, right? That's how I was raised. Those are things that were valued in my household, right? Honor people for who they are, okay? Because people will show you who they are in their behavior, how they act, right? And I had, okay, so I'm just going to go on. So, and I was an at-home mom, so I was at home teaching my kids what I expected, how I expected them to respect and honor other people and treat other people, but also what I expected of them to honor and respect themselves and how they should be treated. Because being respectful to others doesn't mean allowing others to walk all over you, okay? So there's very social, emotional upbringing is very nuanced and challenging and extremely important on this world. Okay, so I feel like it's important to elaborate or inquire, what does it mean to behave well and who determines what behaving well looks like? This is the key or a root of indoctrination. The church is supposed to represent God, and thus, through the dogma of religion and the church that represents God, the church teaches or has taught us what it means to behave well. Our schools, through the standards established at supposedly enforced by those schools, teach code of conduct academically, behaviorally, socially, emotionally. Movies and media do so in a more indirect fashion. Political ideology has an influence on what it means to behave well, or what it looks like, right? The family used to be the root of social emotional upbringing, but now with both parents working, it is daycare, schools, media, social media that are the primary source of influence over our children and parents. Okay? Parents no longer know their children because they weren't around to raise them. They are trying to annihilate God. So you'll see a lot of anti-religion, anti-Jesus stuff now in different media outlets, taking God out of schools, and we no longer say the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Who is raising our children? Who's raising our children? Because mom and dad are working, okay? So this is a question that we all need to ask ourselves, because I feel very strongly that the reason why we have this complete breakdown in our social structure has a lot to do with the fact that there's nobody raising our kids, or the wrong people are raising our kids. I'm revisiting connections to the past. In 2016, during my massive spiritual awakening, I started receiving messages about people I had never met. If I saw a picture, a flood of information would come in about them, their life, their family, our connection. I would feel our past life connection. I would feel worry about and concern for people I had never met and their families. I was confused and overwhelmed. At that time, I was not considering telepathic communication. I've always allowed many people into my field, but right now, Mother Earth is going through a purging. So must we. So when I had that massive spiritual awakening, all of a sudden I'm just completely open, and I have all this information coming in, and I'm completely overwhelmed. I didn't even consider the fact that this was telepathic communication that was coming in, and I was just learning how to protect my energy. And I let so many people into my life into my energy field prior to that. Through my teens, 20s, and 30s, I had a lot of depression, anxiety, a lot. I've been on medication for a long time, on and off, and when I got married, I was on some medication that was not good for a very long time that I had to go off of, and I was very happy when I did that, but it brought an awareness to me, and it allowed me to open up spiritually. And then I ended up seeing the issues in my marriage and so on, and my whole life changed. But my point being is that I was allowing everyone in. I felt like I'm a healer. I'm supposed to help and heal people. And so I'm trying to balance my energy, protect my energy, but also allow people in to help and heal. But right now, Mother Earth is going through a purging, and so are we. And so we have to determine who we can help, who we've been able to help, who is and what is no longer our burden, and what needs to be released. I see the connections. I see these people that have come into my life. I see my soul connection and what my purpose was in their life in this lifetime. I see what I was meant to do and how we were meant to benefit from crossing each other's path. I also see the choice made to remain in the old, to hold on to the familiar and not embrace the possibilities. These choices have naturally separated us physically, but through this purging, we must release the emotional baggage. An example I will give is when I was at Pepperdine, when I was doing my undergraduate work. Most students came from families of considerable wealth. To not comply with their parents' wishes meant loss of access to money. These were people who could not live without wealth because they were never taught how to survive like I was, like working class folk. So they were kind of forced into compliance into whatever they were being whatever was being demanded of them, or whatever was being expected of them, because they had no idea how to live without money, and they were unwilling to release the money or the wealth or all the things that came along with it, and learn to live on their own so they could be their own person, right? I saw that a lot. There are also many people who were raised blue collar like I was, or less, with less money. They didn't have the material wealth, so emotional support would be withheld. Compliance was found through withholding love and emotional support. So people who didn't have money, people who were living out of balance, found a different way to manipulate those people. And a lot of the time it was through withholding emotional support, or even material things like you're not going to be able to eat dinner, you don't get dinner, you don't get breakfast, you're only going to have certain things if you don't comply, right? They would withhold things that people need to survive. Okay, and we do need social emotional support, we do need love, we do need food and water. Okay, we do need these things. And just, you know, to be fair, a lot of the kids that I went to school with at Pepperdine, they, you know, they had money, but they didn't have the emotional support. Even having parents present, they didn't have emotional support because, and I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to get into what I witnessed, but so anyway. Humans by nature will do what they've always done to obtain the things they need. We are being asked to look within. So people by nature are going to stay in their old ways, in their routines, because they've learned how to get what they need by existing from this place. Okay? I use the example when I used to go to Inglewood when I was in college. At undergraduate, during my undergraduate work at Pepperdine, because that's what I knew, that's what I was comfortable with. I didn't relate well to the people who I went to school with, or the people that lived in Malibu. I didn't have money to go pay the bouncer $100 to get into a club, okay? And I wouldn't even, if I did, based on how I was raised, I would have never paid somebody $100 just to go into a club. So I just didn't have, I couldn't live that way. That's not how I was raised. And I didn't see value in that. I didn't relate to these people and how they live their lives. So I would go to Inglewood because it was easier for me to be where I knew how to live and survive and were people I could relate to. And so we always will tend to stick to what we know because it's easier. Okay? It's what we know and we become fluent at it. So what we're being asked to do is look within and find the source, the light within, God. Seek and find that connection, trust in it, and let it grow. Find balance and trust in your inner divinity. It's the light within that facilitates transcendence, protects us through tribulation, and carries us to our next level of awareness, consciousness. I see the light in those whom I have crossed paths. I see the distortion and fear. I feel they are lost in their fears. There is nothing more, anything from outside the self that can be done to help them. They must look within to find the answers they seek. Something's coming. I keep seeing a divergence, division. I see it, I feel it, I'm part of it. I see spiritual warriors behind me. They want to move in front of me, but I ask them to stay back. I must take the impact of the first wave of energy coming in to clear the planet. I control the fields. I must set them properly. So I must set them properly to protect us through this wave that's coming in. I see the lines of these spiritual warriors, and they're lined up like that Great Wall of China, but they're all lined up shoulder to shoulder, and I can't see either end of the line. They're lined up like the old warriors, the old wars, like when I watch old movies, they're all on horseback, like the soldiers on horseback. But these men aren't on horseback, they're just standing shoulder to shoulder. And they're not in these old style uniforms, they're in modern day war attire, fatigues, whatever they wear. And I didn't really want to talk about this. But I wrote it down, so that means maybe I should. I should talk about it. So there's something happening. I was talking about in the beginning of the video, the shifting energy, this choppy, erratic shifting of energy. I see fields. Every time I close my eyes, I see myself working with fields. And it's very upsetting because something's happening, and the energy is shifting intensely, and I can see it. And I have all these spiritual warriors behind me, and but they want to get in front of me, and I'm like, no, because I have to deal with the first wave that comes in. And I didn't really know what that meant. I keep on seeing myself splitting. But that's presently. That's not about something that's coming in later. It's presently. I'm splitting, and I'm creating fields. And there, every time when I close my eyes, there's like, I don't want to say it's not erratic shaking, but it's almost like a little kid grabbing a present and shaking it to see what's inside. That's kind of what I feel like, this rumbling. I guess that's a good way to put it, a rumbling. And then when that happens, I just start working. And so I just see a negative energies trying to come in, and I don't think I'm feeling like somebody wants me to talk about it. If I'm honest, I feel like somebody wants me to talk about it. They're trying to get it out of me, what I'm doing. But I feel like I shouldn't talk about it. And it's a little ironic. It's interesting because really there's nothing this negative energy can do to usurp the will of the divine. But they feel like if they get information, like there's this coveting of information, just coveting of information. Like if they have enough information, they can work the deal. They can get over. It just doesn't matter. We're on a particular specific trajectory. Doesn't matter what information, but it's the feeling I'm getting is it's important just not to give them that information, because it makes them more maniacal. It makes this negativity, this unbalanced energy more aggressive. It makes them feel like every time, it's like a drug. It's like a drug. It feels like they feel empowered by it. They feel unstoppable. Now I know this, I can do this, right? And so I know I shouldn't talk about it, so I'm just going to say the best protection we have, and I read it in here, is to look within, find our divine light, clear, center, and balance our energy, and connect with the divine. Because as we do that, we raise our vibration, and our natural protection is our energy field. And the higher we raise our vibration, the more fortified our energy field is. Okay? Give me just a second. Okay, that's it. Thank you.